ouch. It was my left ear. And after a few days, this thing was driving me crazy. It was so painful and I had a hearing loss. Didn't notice many changes to my tinnitus, but I did have a significant ear pain, really the worst ear pain I've ever experienced. And I want to explain how that happened and give some insight into eustachian tube dysfunction and its importance. So I was on a trip. I was traveling and I was swimming in a river, actually jumping off of a waterfall. I love to get in waterfalls and rivers, but I noticed that when I jumped off this waterfall into this pool of water, that I got some water in my mouth, in my nose, that went through my eustachian tube up behind my ear. And I know I'm a surfer, I've been a surfer for 10 years or more. So what I know is that just opening the jaw, opening the mouth, with time, sometimes that water just naturally leaves behind the ear. Like, it's usually not a big deal. Salt water is typically cleaner than certain kinds of fresh water, right? Rivers, lakes, stagnant water, it's not salt, it's not really clean. So what happened here was after a few days, I was just living my life, no big deal. And I started to notice a little irritation in my ear, just slight pain, mild pain. And then for the next 3 nights, it was progressively worse ear pain to the point where I felt like I needed to go to the emergency room or the urgent care. There was one time in the middle of the night where the ear pain was so significant that it was the most pain I ever felt since I broke my wrist. And let's pull up an image on the screen here of the ear. So we're going to point to the eardrum, and then past the eardrum, we're going to point now to the eustachian tube. So behind the eardrum, there's this cavity of air, and it's called the middle ear space. So behind the eardrum, the middle ear space is typically just filled with air. That's where the 3 small middle ear bones live. If you get fluid behind your eardrum, if you get water behind your eardrum, it's going to stay in that area. But your eustachian tube, which by blowing out of my ears, I can regulate, that eustachian tube is going to keep that passageway clear and let any natural water, fluid, mucus, etc. drain out. That's what it's designed to do.
This is a short interruption from today's video to announce the tinnitus quiz. Are you frustrated by your tinnitus? Does it affect your ability to concentrate or fall asleep? If you're ready to find lasting relief from tinnitus, visit tinnitusquiz.com to get personalized solutions and treatment techniques to help you manage your symptoms today.
If you have children, you might have known that they get ear infections. Well, some of the worst ear infections are when there's fluid behind the eardrum, because it not only is painful, but it can actually make us hear worse. It can cause a hearing loss. So I was going through this process of a few days where I was in significant pain. I was taking pain medication. I wasn't able to get into an ENT doctor because at the time where I was remote. It was away from a doctor that specializes in the ears. And I didn't have the otoscope, the visual handheld piece to look in the ear. We'll put an image of that on the screen right now. I didn't have an otoscope with me. So I felt like I really just needed to kind of wait and see and make sure that I was managing this. But fortunately, because of my knowledge of the ear, I wasn't in a fight or flight state of panic and feeling like there was nothing I could do, or feeling like I had to go to the emergency room. I know that many of us, if for example, it was an issue with my liver or my stomach, and I don't know much about the stomach, I don't know much about the liver, right? If it was issues with that and I was having abdominal pain, I would for sure go to the emergency room because I don't know what's going on. Is it something serious? I mean, maybe I would try to go on Google and search and find this out. But the fortunate thing in this for me is that being an ear specialist, I knew the anatomy, I knew what was happening. I was opening my eustachian tube. I could feel it opening slightly, but I still really felt like I had this fluid behind my eardrum. The other piece of this that was interesting is that I had swimmer's ear very badly, meaning that I had a lot of pain in my ear canal on my physical ear itself. It's just started to clear up so I can touch it. But the ear canal itself was swollen. It was red. My ear was very sensitive to the touch, even behind the ear in the mastoid bone area. Never experienced that before. It was really intense pain, easy to filter out and kind of just, ignore, and pain medication helped me during the day. At night, it had periods where it was really painful. So fortunately, after the peak experience of just intense symptoms, it calmed down a bit, and I was able to notice that my symptoms were getting better. There was less pain. It's 50-50 on whether my eardrum popped. I think that it might have, but I never saw any fluid discharge. So now I'm starting to believe like my eardrum didn't actually pop. Sometimes that can happen with middle ear infections where your eardrum pops due to the pressure, the building pressure inside of this balloon that is your middle ear space and that is your eardrum. So my tympanic membrane, my eardrum, I think is safe. My ear canal is back to essentially normal. My eustachian tube is clearing. I'm very grateful. I didn't have to get my eardrum cut open to relieve any pressure or relieve any fluid. That's typically a good thing, but at the time I was thinking, oh my God, I wish I was just a walk away from an ENT clinic, one of my colleagues who could just put a little tube in my ear or just open the eardrum a little bit with a little medical knife or something just to relieve this pressure and relieve this pain. So for any of you who have experienced similar pain, wow, I feel you. I understand what you're going through. And as an audiologist, I felt the call to make this video because how many ear specialists are actually experiencing real symptoms and problems with their ear. So if you're going swimming in a river or if you're jumping off of a waterfall, be careful about the water going inside of your ear. So hold your nose, hold your mouth, don't breathe in the water when you're under, and everything should be okay. My name is Ben Thompson, audiologist with Treble Health, tinnitus specialist, signing off. Thanks, guys. Bye.